Okay, so the settling of the West. First thing you have to talk about when settling the West is the Great Plains. Okay, it was a region that extends westward to the Rocky Mountains from around the 100th meridian, an imaginary line running north and south from the Central Dakotas through western Texas. Okay, rainfall on the Great Plains only averages about 20 inches per year. Trees only grow naturally along rivers and streams and on hilltops due to the lack of water coming down all the time. And on the Great Plains, you have huge herds of buffalo that once grazed on the prairie grasses of the Great Plains. Okay, so Major Stephen Long, he explored this region with an army expedition in 1819. He called it the Great American Desert and said it was almost entirely unfit for farming. Little did he know. Okay, so we start to see settlement in the Great Plains with railroads. Railroads provided easy access because they're going right across them. So railroad companies sold land along the rail lines at low prices, and they often provided credit to do this. The federal government also helped settle the Great Plains by passing the Homestead Act in 1862. For $10, a settler could file for a homestead or a tract of public land available for settlement. The homesteader could get up to 160 acres of a public land and could receive title of it after living there for 5 years. Settlers on the plains found life was very difficult. The environment was harsh, with summer temperatures soaring over 100 degrees Fahrenheit and winter bringing blizzards and extreme cold. Okay, prairie fires would happen, and often they would have swarms of grasshoppers were a danger and threat to any kind of crops that they might have on the Great Plains during this time. Okay, so the wheat belt. Many inventions and new farming methods made farming on the Great Plains very profitable. Okay, farmers on the Great Plains used what was called dry farming method, which where you'd plant seeds deep in the ground where there was enough moisture for them to grow. By the 1860s, farmers on the Great Plains were usually using newly designed steel plows, seed drills, reapers, and threshing machines to harvest the wheat. These machines made dry farming possible. Okay, farmers could work large tracts of land with these machines as a result. And farmers who plowed the soil on the Great Plains were often called sod busters because that's what this ground was like. It was a sod. It was really thick, a lot of roots and stuff in it. Okay, many of them also end up losing their homesteads because of drought, wind erosion, and overuse of the land. It's also one of the overuse of the land is one of the causes of the Dust Bowl era and the Depression era. Okay, during the 1860s and 1870s, a new technology such as mechanical reapers and binders and threshing machines made farming more profitable. These innovations were well suited for harvesting wheat because wheat withstood drought better than other crops. So it became the most important crop grown on the Great Plains as a real result of this dry climate. Okay. So wheat farmers from Minnesota and other Midwestern states moved to the Great Plains in large numbers to take advantage of the inexpensive land and these new farming technologies, and this became known as the Wheat Belt. It began at the eastern edge of the Great Plains and included much of the Dakotas, western parts of Nebraska and Kansas. Some wheat farms, called bonanza farms, were much larger than a single-family farms and covered up to 50,000 acres. These farms often brought the owners large profits. The first modern-day corporate farms, I guess. Several events caused the Great Plains farmers to fall in hard times, though. They weren't always great. In the 1890s, you get a glut of wheat, which caused prices to drop. Same thing with the cattle ranchers. Okay, some farmers lost their land because they could not repay their bank loans they had taken out so they could farm and buy this land. And then you also had a prolonged drought that began in the 1880s, which forced many farmers to return to the east. Okay, so the closing of the frontier. In the Oklahoma land rush on April 22nd, 1889, over 10,000 people raced to stake claims in new territory that later became known as Oklahoma. In 1890, the Census Bureau reported that the frontier was closing. Okay, this news concerned those who believed that land at the frontier provided a place for Americans to make a fresh start. Many settlers in the Great Plains did make a fresh start. They adapted to the environment by getting water from deep wells and getting supplies and building materials that the railroads had shipped. Okay, there you have just a little bit on the hardships that the settlers may have faced in the Great Plains area. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that short video, and you probably will have a short quiz over it or at some time in the future. Thank you.